In the last lesson, we introduced the ability to add tickets to concerts, but we finished off the lesson with a single test failure, which was that we failed to assert that 0 matched the expected 3 in our concert test on line 65. So let's check out what's going on here, see if we can get it to pass, and then jump back up to see how things are looking in our feature test. So if we head to line 65 of our concert test, you can see that we're asserting that the order contains 3 tickets, but this is failing, and instead we're getting 0 tickets back. Now, the reason for this is that when we created this concert, we didn't give it any tickets. So the easiest way to get this test to pass is to just add 3 tickets to the concert so that when Jane tries to place her order, there's actually 3 tickets available for her to purchase. So if we run this individual test now, it's back to green, and with any luck, the entire concert test class is also back to green. And it looks like it is, so we're ready to jump back up to our feature test. So now if we head back over to our purchase tickets test and jump down to our cannot purchase more tickets than remain test, we can run this again and see where things are at. So if we run just this individual test, we're getting an error that we expected a 422 to come back, but instead we're getting a 201 back. So this is happening on line 94. So let's check that out. So on line 94, we're expecting that we got a 422 back, so we're expecting that the request fails, but for some reason it's succeeding. So let's head over to the concert orders controller and see what's going on. So if we head down to the store method here, first we're trying to charge the payment gateway, which makes sense, and then we're trying to order the tickets, which gives us back an order. But looking here, I can't really see any reason why we would get a 422 back. If someone tries to order tickets and there's not enough tickets left, it's still going to go ahead down to this line and return a 201. So I think what we need to do is define the behavior for what should happen when someone tries to call order tickets on a concert, but there isn't enough tickets available to complete that order. So let's head over to our concert unit test and define this behavior. So let's add another test here just to the bottom. We'll call this one something like trying to purchase more tickets than remain throws an exception. So to get started, we'll create a concert using our factory. And then we'll add some known amount of tickets to that concert. Maybe we'll just add 10 tickets to the concert. And then we'll try and place an order for 11 tickets, say. So let's wrap this order tickets call in a try catch block. And we have to think about what exception we actually want to throw here. Why don't we make a new exception, something like a not enough tickets exception. And we'll make sure, first of all, that we return from in this catch block so the test doesn't fail. And now outside of the catch block, we'll explicitly fail the test so that if the exception is not thrown, we do see a test failure. There's one other assertion that I'd like to make here, and we can do that inside of the catch block. So I'd like to make sure that no order was created for Jane in this case because she tried to order the tickets and there wasn't enough tickets available. So let's try and fetch that order. So we can say order equals concert orders where email is jane@example.com, and we'll get the first one. And we just want to assert that that is in fact null. Another assertion that we can make here is to verify that the tickets are still available for somebody else to purchase since Jane's order failed. So we can also say this assert equals 10 concert tickets remaining. So let's just run this individual test case and see what happens. So we're getting a failure, but it's not really clear what it is. It's just failing on line 104. And 104 is where we're just explicitly failing the test. So one thing that we can do to improve the readability of our failures is to pass a message here. So maybe we can say something like order succeeded even though there were not enough tickets remaining. And now when we run this test again, we should see that failure message. Great, so now we have a better idea of why this test actually failed. So let's take a look at our actual concert class and figure out what we need to do to get this passing. So if we look at our order tickets method here, there's nothing in here that's verifying that we were able to actually acquire the right amount of tickets for the customer. Instead, what we're doing is just limiting the number of tickets that we find and then just looping over whatever we did get back and saving those. So if we requested 5, but there's only 3 available, we're still just going to loop over those 3 and save those 3 tickets to the order. So we can fix this by doing an explicit check to make sure that we got the right amount of tickets back. So let's add an if statement here. We'll say if tickets count is less than the ticket quantity that was requested, then we'll throw a new not enough tickets exception. And we'll go back and run the tests again and see what happens. So now we're getting an error that there is no not enough tickets exception class. So let's head over to our app exceptions folder and we'll just stick it in here. So we'll say new file, not enough tickets exception.php. And this will be in our app exceptions namespace. And we'll call the class not enough tickets exception. And it can just extend PHP's runtime exception. And now if we go back to the concert class, we can import that exception. And then also make sure we update the concert test to import that exception, so we're pulling them both from the right namespace. If we run this test again, hopefully we'll see a different error. So now the failure we're seeing is that we got an order back and we expected that order to be null. And this is happening on line 100, so let's take a look. So on concert test line 100, we're trying to assert that the order that comes back is null, but it's not. So why could that be happening? Let's check out the concert class and look at the order tickets method again. It looks like we're trying to create the order as the very first thing we do inside the order tickets method. So even if there's not enough tickets remaining, we've already created the order. So one way to solve this would be to move this creation and defer it until after we're able to do that check. So let's run the tests again and see what happens. Great, so now that test is passing. However, there's actually a subtle bug in our implementation that I want to point out. If you look at our implementation, we're just fetching any tickets from the concert. We're not doing the same sort of scoping that we were doing down here, where we only want to make sure that we're looking for tickets that have no order ID. So rather than just adding that where clause to our query up here, let's write another test that's going to force us to update our implementation. So let's head back to our concert test and we'll add another test underneath this test. And we'll call this one cannot order tickets that have already been purchased. So to get started, we'll create a concert and add some tickets to it, just like the previous test. We can just copy this implementation for now. But we also want to add another setup step where someone else purchases some of these tickets. So let's copy this line up here where Jane was purchasing 11 tickets, but this time we'll just have Jane purchase maybe 8 tickets. And now for our act step, we'll have someone else try to purchase more tickets than remain. So if there's only 10 tickets to start with and Jane has purchased 8 tickets, then there should only be 2 tickets remaining. So let's see what happens if John tries to purchase 3 tickets, which is 1 more ticket than is actually available. So similar to the previous test, we want to wrap this stuff up in a try catch. So I'm just going to copy this stuff down here for now. And we'll just swap out this call here with the call up here. And let's think about our assertions here. So we probably want to make sure that John didn't get an order. So let's update this to John. And maybe we'll call this John's order. And then we can assert that John's order is null. And then let's update this assertion to make sure that we have 2 tickets remaining still after John's order failed. So we'll also copy this failure line down here so that we can verify that if for some reason we don't hit this catch block, that our test is still going to fail. And now let's run just this one test and see what happens. So we are in fact hitting that failure on line 124 that says the order succeeded even though there were not enough tickets remaining. So like we had previously discussed, we can fix this by adding that where clause here. So let's do tickets where null order ID. And take just from that pool of tickets instead of taking from all of the tickets. Now, hopefully when we run this test again, it'll finally pass. Great, so now that that test is passing, let's run this entire file and make sure that we have no other errors to clean up. And everything looks like it's working okay. So I'd like to take one final refactoring step. Right now, you can see that we've duplicated this where clause. We're checking to make sure that the order ID is null here on the tickets. We're also trying to make sure that the order ID is null here on the tickets. What I'd like to do is encapsulate this detail behind a query scope. So let's head over to our ticket class and we'll add a public function scope. We'll call it available, right? Available tickets are tickets that are not associated with an order. And this is going to take a query. And now we can add that where clause here. So we can say return query where null order ID. And now if we head back to our concert class, we can replace each one of these one at a time. So we can say tickets available, and then go back and run the concert tests, and everything is still passing, so that refactoring was successful. And now we can head up to the other time where we were using that where clause and replace that with a call to the query scope as well. And if we go back and run the tests again, hopefully everything is still green. And the tests are all passing, so we're in good shape. In the next lesson, we'll jump back up to our feature test again and see what's left to do.